Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report. Today we have returning guest Igal Hecht of Chutzpa Productions. You may recognize Igal because we've had him on our programming before, specifically to talk about some documentaries he's made in the past about issues such as genocide, but also for our current project called Revelations. It is on our projects tab in our website, but that's not why we have Igal talking to us today. Igal has developed and published a documentary about October 7th called The Killing Roads, and Igal is going to be in the DC area between October 4th and 7th to screen that event. The Jerusalem Connection is sponsoring that travel and attendance, and we really want to talk to Igal about why he made this film, how he feels about sharing the film with everybody, and make sure you all know that you have an opportunity to meet him and see the movie if you're in the DC area, and he also screens it elsewhere, so we can certainly share those opportunities as well. Igal, thank you for joining us today. Welcome back to the program.
Amy, thank you so much for having me and for all the support in the last few years. It's been amazing.
Igal, I met you before October 7th, 2023. It was actually that summer. I think it was that summer. Shelley Neese, the Jerusalem Connection's president, she connected us because I went to Poland on a Jewish history tour, and we decided we wanted to create a sort of a reality TV, so to speak, movie that would follow sojourners through Poland to learn about this basically untold history and the resurgence of the Jewish culture and life in Poland since 1989. So we were kind of working on that, and we're working with the Polish embassy to get that trip together. Again, it's on our website, jerusalemconnection.us, under our projects called Revelations. I encourage you all to read about it and consider helping out with that. But while we were in the middle of this project, the horrible day of October 7th, 2023 occurred. And I think it took a lot of organizations that support Israel, advocate for the Jewish people. It took us off our normal track of projects because we were watching something unfold that was not only traumatic for Israelis and Jews, but just so antithetical to all the work that the Jerusalem Connection and our sister organizations do. So, Igal, tell us about that day for you. Where were you? And then how it came to be that you decided to focus on the particular topics in The Killing Roads.
I was home. It was 11:30 at night. I remember that vividly. And I basically, my phone started really ringing, every alert possible. I have every app from Israeli media and other sources, and every alert possible started really blowing up on my phone. And I contacted my friend Ilan, who lives in Tel Aviv, and he was up. And then my cameraman Lior Cohen, who I made The Killing Roads with, texted me and said, "This is unprecedented. There's rockets constantly being launched at Israel. Nobody knows what's going on." And as the hours progressed, we got a larger scale understanding of what was happening. And so it was a very, very tragic few days. I didn't go to sleep. I knew I was going to right away do a movie about the 7th of something. I didn't know what, but I started basically staying online, going on various terrorist Telegram channels, WhatsApp channels, X, because, they published everything, and started downloading all the footage that was possible, that was available, that you could find, unfortunately, online. And you really got to see the horrors, the savagery, the barbaric nature of these Palestinian terrorists, be it Hamas, Islamic Jihad, or thousands of other Gazan citizens that took part in this most barbaric genocidal attack on Israel on the 7th. So fast forward a couple of weeks, I was starting to work on another film that dealt with women who survived the massacre from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and that movie's coming out next year. And I still wanted to, and I read an article in the New York Times in Haaretz, which I normally don't read, but this article really caught my eye, and it was about what happened on Route 232 and Route 34. And on those roads, specifically, 250 Israelis were murdered. and anybody who was on that road really didn't survive, or barely survived. And the way they murdered people, the sheer barbaric acts that occurred on those roads, weren't being told here in Canada, where I live, in the United States, or really anywhere else. They were told in Israel within, individual stories, but there wasn't really a film that took a deep look into what happened within the context of the seventh on the roads. And so the majority of the emphasis was placed on Nova, and rightfully so, and on the kibbutzim and on cities like Sderot and Ofakim, but nobody really looked at the roads, and people were murdered on the roads. People who were out just, on their bike because it was a beautiful Saturday morning. People who were just out for a walk, things along those lines. They were murdered in the most savage and barbaric ways. And so I decided that the film was going to focus on that. Couldn't get any funding here in Canada. Our national broadcaster and other broadcasters aren't really interested in the Israeli narrative. They gave the Israelis maybe a week to mourn and then flip the switch, and has basically throughout the context of the last 2 years blood libeled and defamed Israel on a regular basis, lied about what's happening and continue to lie about what's happening in Gaza, to a point where our prime minister recently awarded a state to terrorists who savagely murdered and raped and burned Israelis. But I guess that's Canadian values now. But moving on. So I decided to make a movie about it. Couldn't get the funding. Called Lior, who's been my amazing collaborator for the last 20 years. And I said, we're making this film no matter what. So no matter what happens, we're making this film. Booked a flight got delayed. Basically, all flights were canceled. So had to wait another month. And in about early 2024, I went back to Israel for about a month and filmed all over Road 232 and Road 34, where all of this savagery took place. And really brought stories that weren't heard, and also visuals that weren't seen before. And made the decision to make the film a graphic movie. We blur the faces of those who were murdered, but at the same time, we don't shy away from the barbarity that occurred on that day. So we show bodies being burned, or burned bodies. So we show the aftermath right after what occurred 20 minutes or an hour later of the bodies lying on the road. And all the interviews and everything in this film, the majority of this film, take place on the road. So you really get to feel and sense what occurred on the 7th on the roads of southern Israel where these attacks took place. And the main reason I wanted to make this film, and the main reason I released it for free, and the main reason I share this film for free with anyone who wants to show it, whether I'm there or not, it doesn't really matter, is the fact that there's so much denial, there's so much lies, and complete sheer unaware and ignorance of what occurred on the 7th. The narrative, the Arab narrative, has been the moment the 7th hit, because they knew what they did. So their, supporters, these Islamo-Nazi genocidal supporters, and progressive, fringe, not so much fringe, unfortunately, some parts of the Democratic Party as well, left in North America or in the U.S. or in Canada, decided to spin it, where it didn't start on the 7th, it started in 48, right? So that way they should somehow have an excuse to commit these barbaric and savage acts. But the reality is that the only reason that what's happening in Gaza right now is happening in Gaza, the only reason Israel is in Gaza is because of what occurred on the 7th. Mm-hmm. Because on the 7th, 7,000 Gazans and hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of their supporters in Gaza and around the world cheered and committed the most barbaric, savage acts against a group of people since, I would say, in one day, since the Rwanda genocide, since the Yazidi genocide. They wanted to commit a genocide on the Jewish people. They committed a mini genocide on the Jewish people. The only reason they didn't continue is because they were stopped. They were very gung-ho to murder as many Jews as they can. That was their plan. There was nothing else. That was the sheer reason for the 7th to take place. And unfortunately, today, and this is one of the main reasons I made the movie, is I want people to realize that this was their plan, and that governments around the world, because of internal pressure, because they face a growing large Muslim population that is radical, and it acts in the most violent ways, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's in Europe. Because of that, they are catering to these terrorists, and they are rewarding terrorism, and they are rewarding barbarity, and they are rewarding savagery. And the Western democratic free world should not be doing that. They should be at the front line, standing shoulder to shoulder with the only democracy in the Middle East, defending the core value of Western society that are now, being uprooted by these individuals that have embedded themselves within the United States, within Canada, and other countries to destroy the Western way of life. And it's all interconnected, and the seventh is a part of it. The seventh galvanized all of these people because they saw that they can commit these horrible, horrific acts and get away with it.
Oh, yeah. They can't. It's not even getting away with it. People can go to cocktail parties and be on social media and excuse it, rationalize it, cheer it on, what have you, without impunity and without any kind of shame. So, Igal, you make this film because you saw this deficit in the. There are several really excellent, well done documentaries out there about the seventh.
Yes.
Certainly, the kibbutz,
and more coming,
and Nova having seen sort of a wide focus because of just the nature of a music event with all these mostly young people, right?
Yeah.
And then the kibbutzim where it's families. I mean, it's just traditional families, multi-generational families, very peace-loving communities, many of them working with the Gazan community as employees or helping them get to Israeli medical care. So you focus on the killing roads, and you also know at the same time that you need to get this documented. You need to get these stories out. You need to speak to the survivors or the relatives of the victims, because you saw also that tide turning. Israel didn't even, and the Jewish population didn't even get it seems like a full 24 hours to count their dead, let alone mourn them. And the tide was turning against Israel.
Yeah.
And so you make this film and you decide this isn't a commercial endeavor. I really want the world to have this piece of history at their disposal, to consume. And as such, you do attend screenings whenever you're available and or invited, right? So if people go to thekillingroads.com, they can connect with you and have you host a screening, even if you Zoom in to do a Q&A or a panel discussion. But at the very least, people can access the film. They could show it to their college classes or a church group. And that's a really important outlet and resource for the entire community, the Jewish community, the non-Jewish community, the Christian community, everybody in between. So
absolutely.
In October, what we want to do, because we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of this horrible event, and we still have 48 hostages at the time we're recording this, we have 48 hostages. They don't even really know, or at least the reports I'm seeing is if maybe 20 of them are still living. And if they are, I'm sure they're in torturous conditions. So
very much so.
We have Igal coming to the DC area. So, and check the show notes. You're all welcome. Everything is free to attend. So October 4th at the JCC Bender Center in Rockville, Maryland, co-hosted partner with the IAC, Israeli American Council. Igal will be part of a panel discussion memorializing the day, reflecting on the day. Some clips of his film will be shown, but he'll be part of a larger panel to reflect on that, and it is part of the IAC JCC commemorative event. So that's the evening of the 4th. On the 6th, so we have the Jewish community hosting you on the 4th. On the 6th, we have you hosted by Capitol Hill. Igal's
Yes.
film is going to be screened on Capitol Hill. It is free to attend, but we encourage an RSVP. Again, check the show notes. You'll have all the information. It will be in the Rayburn office building from 4 to 6 p.m. Again, free of charge. Just show up, but we'd love an RSVP. Get a heads up. And then on the 7th, the actual 2-year anniversary, which also happens to be a Jewish holiday, Reston Bible Church in Dulles, Virginia, which is just on the border of Fairfax County and Loudoun County in the suburbs of DC. That church will be hosting in their 850-seat sanctuary Igal's screening, and we will have an opportunity for folks to also offer Q&A. That is free. It is open to the entire community. You can check our social medias for the address. I'll put it in the show notes. So there's 3 opportunity and maybe a 4th by the time we air this. If we have another venue, we'll let everybody know. But you can not only get a chance to see this film, you can see it with your community members and with Igal, who will be there to introduce it and also provide an opportunity for Q&A, a discussion. Maybe you'll have questions on what you saw or how he felt when he was filming it. So Igal, we're going to have all that information available for everybody. Again, it'll be posted on our socials. I want people to understand the gravity of this film. I mean, it is not just a historical document for posterity to make sure that these stories are told and preserved, but tell us just a little bit about the process you used in order to know what footage to include. For example, there's footage from the CCTV, which is the public cameras, like safety cameras. And then there's other kinds of footages from nefarious sources. So tell us a little bit about how you built it so that we are clear on the credibility and the fortitude of the information.
Sure. So the way I built it is the footage itself, the archival footage. First, there's the interviews and survivors and their families, the people who were murdered. We interviewed their family members as well. And as I said, the majority of the interviews happened on the roads at the exact spot where the murders took place. Secondly, I used all available footage that was available that Hamas and other terrorist organizations put out there on social media, and then some footage that sources in Israel put out there, probably without permission of the authorities, but they were still put out there, such as the CCTV footage from various junction points and things along those lines. The third element of footage that we used was from our survivors. So we have a number of survivors that filmed themselves. One woman, Daniela Gandhi, who was in a car for 7 hours waiting to be rescued, she filmed from a point of view, basically what she was experiencing. And the way she filmed it makes you feel as if you're there with her. And that was some unbelievable and traumatic and very dramatic footage as well. She survived. And what we were able to do, luckily, thanks to United Hatzalah Services, was to gain access to 50 hours of ambulance dashcam footage of the front and the back of multiple ambulances. And Hatzalah was there along with Magen David and other services. They were there right away. And so from 8 a.m. all the way till 8 p.m., for those 12 hours, we have every stretch of the road documented at every stage.
Right.
So from the moment they attacked, right after the junction was freed by Israeli forces, Hatzalah moved in. And so we have the bodies. And we didn't know this in the beginning because I got access to the footage after we filmed the movie. And I went through 50 hours of footage, frame by frame, looking for the people who we talk about in the films. And unfortunately, we found their cars, we found their bodies, we found everything. And we show it. Obviously, we blur the faces, we blur the bodies out of respect for those who were murdered. But it was very important to show that because, there's so much denial that exists out there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't enough that Hamas murdered and live broadcasted. Hamas isn't denying what it did. Hamas is not only justified, it celebrates what it did, but yet the supporters of this barbaric 6th century savage group, terrorist group, are saying it never happened. So you have on the one hand North American kafir Karens and their Islamo-Nazi progressive counterparts saying it never happened, and you have the terrorist group saying, "Oh yeah, it happened, and we're so proud of it." But this is the world we live in, and so to counter this denial, to counter this insanity, sheer insanity, I was able to use, four different sources to really create a sense of what happened on that day. And you really get almost a moment by moment on every stretch of that road an idea of what Hamas and it's important to note, other Palestinian Arab terrorist citizens of Gaza did on that day.
Yeah.
I hate, and as I always say, I hate the fact that we only pretend it's Hamas when in reality it was Gazans. Gazans did this. Gazans cheered this on in the thousands. Thousands of them committed these atrocities. Millions of them celebrated and cheered these atrocities on. And that is something that's so important for people to understand that is also missing from the narrative. It's very much missing from the narrative, especially as Israel enters this war and tries to finish off this war with Gaza. The fact that Israel is now going after citizens, unfortunately, Hamas has put citizens in the middle of all of this,
Yeah.
using them as human shields and using them as a way to try and galvanize the West and European anti-Semitic governments, etc., to stop Israel from destroying Hamas. Their whole modus of operandus is to survive, so they can survive and they can say they beat Israel. They don't care what happens to the everyday citizen in Gaza. They've starved them to death by hoarding and stealing their food. They've used them as human shield. They've booby-trapped their homes. They've booby-trapped their cars. They've used their entire infrastructure of Gaza to build tunnels. He's spending millions and millions and millions, billions of aid money that was sent by the United States, that was sent by Canada, to build a tunnel, a network of terror. Effectively, my government here in Canada is funding terrorism through third-party aid groups, is funding terrorism against Israel. And we're all sort of ignoring as if, oh no, we're helping. No, you're helping Hamas, and there's clear evidence of that.
Yeah.
So all of this is to say that this is the main reason I made this film. So people remember in terms of history in 10 years, when you want to know what happened on the 7th, this is going to be one of those films that you can learn from among other wonderful films. And I encourage everybody to watch all the films about the 7th that are out there, but also to fight, to really, really combat and fight this denial that has, unfortunately, is so prevalent and has taken such a hold of so many politicians. We're going to show this in Capitol Hill, and I'm very excited because I every time I get to come to Washington, it's really exciting. It's such an amazing, again, the United States is such an amazing country with such a beautiful legacy of democracy, and yet in Capitol Hill, there are politicians that not only support Hamas, not only justify Hamas and excuse Hamas, but are also denying what happened on the 7th. And they unfortunately come from the Progressive and Democratic Party. Obviously, not everyone, and there are people within the Democratic Party that are fighting them. But this is the world we live in now, where 100 years after the rise of Nazi Germany, you have elements both on the right and on the left, I have to say,
Yes.
on the right as well,
Yes.
unfortunately, growing, whether it's Qatar funding this or whatnot, who are echoing in a different way, but basically echoing what was done and what was said 100 years ago, which then led to the largest genocide of people, known to man. And so that is what this film is trying to fight. And that is what everybody who's making films about the 7th are trying to do. We want the world to understand that no one in Israel wanted to be in Gaza on October 7th. Not one person, not even the most right-wing politicians, no one wanted to be in Gaza on October 7th. On October 7th, millions of Gazans cheered and celebrated the murder and savage attacks on Israelis. And that is the difference. And expecting Israelis to live beside an entity that says day in and day out, as most recent as 2 days ago, from what we're doing our interview, that they will do the seventh over
Hmm.
and over again if given a chance, and then expecting Israel to say, "Oh, that's okay. Okay, we're going to wait for the next time,"
Right.
is insanity. No country will endure this. No country will be expected to endure this. Unfortunately, the world, specifically the progressive world, and their supporters are asking Israel to endure this. And and once again, it's horrible what's happening in Gaza. And it's a real tragedy, but it's not the doing of Israel. It is purely the doing of the Arab terrorists that live in Gaza, that don't care about Arab lives, they don't care about Israeli lives. They just want to destroy the state of Israel by any means. They have a final solution for the state of Israel, and it doesn't matter to them how many people die.
That's right. On their own side. And again, I don't even know what is more difficult to counter, the denial that comes up in the West, or the celebration of the evil that you see in some circles. I mean, both of those approaches to this act of barbarism in our collective history. I know the Israelis they are the brunt of this history, but I really think it was a watershed moment to a crumbling of the world, where it now became okay to take your anti-Semitism, your anti-Zionism, that everybody kind of tried to wash over and put in a
Yeah.
container after World War II. But now it's okay again, just like in the 1930s. It's okay again now to vilify a people, and this time they just dress it up as this, or not dress it up, but cloak it in this idea of, well, it's just
Yeah.
this country. It's not the.
Well, I mean, Jews are being blamed. I mean, look, I'll say it. There's a couple of podcasters that are affiliated with Qatar that are very popular from, the right, and there's a reason why Qatar is going after the what used to be the pro-Israel side, because they know that if they can get the evangelical side on their side, then that's it. And there's a reason why these specific, and I think everybody knows who I'm talking about, individuals are doing this. Financial, they're being funded by Qatar. That's very clear, and there's clear evidence of that as well. Google it, and I think
Mhm.
we all know who I'm talking about. So they have monetized this hate against Jews. And once you monetize this hate against Jews, everybody's going to jump on it and go, well, I can make money by hating Jews, and it's socially acceptable, so why the hell not? I mean, the fact that Jews are being now blamed for Charlie Kirk's murder is sheer
It is.
insanity.
It's insane.
Even the most insane neo-Nazi out there who has a podcast has come out and said, okay. And when the neo-Nazi starts making more sense than the right-wing podcasters, former disgraced journalists, then there is a problem within the right.
Hmm.
And my biggest fear, and again, I want to use this film and any platform I can have, is to talk to the Christian community, the
That's right.
Christian world, and to have them understand that they are being fully lied to by individuals, grifters, absolute grifters, who only care about money. And 10 years ago, they were preaching the gospel when it comes to Israel and how wonderful it is. And 10 years later, a terrorist state named Qatar that also funds terrorism, that also funds hatred against America, is using them to basically mainstream anti-Semitism. In the Christian world, specifically the evangelical world, but any Christian who knows their Bible, who reads the Bible, who understands what the Bible is about, knows that they're lying. And the problem is that, it has become such a mainstream thing to hate Jews, brought upon by the left, embraced by the fringe right that is slowly becoming the unfortunate mainstream right, that both sides can agree on one thing now. They disagree about everything, but they can agree on the fact that they're hating Jews
That's right.
and on hating Jews. And it's just a sad turn of events. And we are really, again, it's not the same, but it's definitely eerily similar
Hmm.
to what happened 100 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
And
what's coming up on the right is so distressing because the anti-Semitism that was fomented in the Christian church in Europe for
Yeah.
1800 years, you would have thought that the Holocaust would have wakened that faulty theology or shook it out of people, and it certainly was getting identified. Probably since the 1700s, the Puritans identified that faulty theology. Then England was the reason why the Balfour Declaration was even declared is because of the repentance of at least Anglican Church and Christians in the UK to see they've been reading their Bible wrong. And now it's like replacement theology, and that's the term we use for it. We
Yeah.
thought we pushed it down to the fringes, but it's bubbling back up, especially with those certain podcasters who have a huge platform and they cater to the Christian audience because they label themselves as Christian, and it's very scary. And that's one of the missions of the Jerusalem Connection and other organizations like the Jerusalem Connection, is not just to say, oh, we've got this antithesis to our value system, our belief system, and our religion, but we have this poison in our own ranks under our own umbrella.
There's certain podcasters that love to say Jesus is king,
Yep.
and
Christ is
if
king
Jesus
is
is
the
king,
phrase. Jesus is king, but Christ is king is that
correct.
little.
So if that is the case, then as a Christian, you must know that by hating Jesus, you actually hate Jews because Jesus was Jewish. And it's very simple. And so the notion of hating Jews counters every single teaching that Jesus ever had
Yeah.
and the foundation that Christianity has been built on. And so by espousing these demonic anti-Semitic lies, you're essentially espousing hatred towards Jesus.
Yes, our Jewish Messiah, Jesus. I mean, for Christians,
So,
we believe that Jesus is still alive. He was resurrected, and
right,
he isn't that he was a Jew and is now a Christian. No, he was a Jew and he is a Jew. He still is
right,
Jewish. Like, there's
yeah.
nothing in our Christian Testament text that removes the Jewish identity and the Jewishness of Jesus. He embodies.
And so I think, absolutely. And so I think that followers of Christ and Christians have to understand that these these grifters who very much do not follow the teachings of Jesus in any shape or form, lifestyle, hatred, financial, definitely do not, are basically selling a message that counters the message of Jesus.
That's right.
And I think that needs to be said throughout the Christian world in every platform. And certainly, if I'm invited to a church to show the film, and once again, I'm very much committed, so I never ask for any financial benefit from it. I can zoom in, I can fly in, you can have the film for free. That is really the ultimate goal of the project, and that's why I released it for free, even though a broadcaster wanted to air it. I and people like me just really want people to understand what happened on the 7th, and also unfortunately counter this growing wave of anti-Semitism in the right, which is still in the fringes, but it's slowly moving towards the mainstream. And I hope that whoever's watching this understands that the individuals who are pushing for this, and I think everybody knows who I'm talking about. These very specific individuals, have nothing to do with Christianity, truth, or even supporting America, because when you simply, follow the money and follow where their support is coming from, there's Qatar, there's Russia, there's China, all of these entities, all of these countries that are working day and night to destroy the American way of life. And they are connected to Hamas, and they are connected to the progressive movements who are burning down American cities, who are shooting at Americans simply because they disagree with them. All of this is something that is we have to fight as individuals who believe in a democracy, freedoms, and really showcase a true story of what happened. In my case, essentially, of what happened on the seventh.
So when you documented everything, which again will be available for posterity as an important and
Mm-hmm.
methodically and put together assembled piece so that there's credibility to it, you don't just have a recording of the history, but you also have, it's very powerful emotionally, like the way that you bring the victims or their family members to the very places on the road, and you're with them and you're talking to them and they're walking these the sides of the roads, the sticks and the grass, and at
Yeah.
this point only a few months have transpired since October
Mm-hmm.
and you were there. You also are taking a journey emotionally. You're not just getting the academic facts, so to speak, sort of the facts on the
Yeah.
ground. You're getting a journey in humanity and you're bonding with these people. So that's one more reason for the Christian community to embrace this endeavor and share this film, screen it with their congregations, invite Igal if he's available to fly in or to zoom in so that people can ask questions about it. And it's really important that the Christian community is on the front line to push back this hatred that is, like I said, under our own umbrella and in our own ranks. We can't just say that Jesus loved everybody. He does, but he also loves justice and he also loves truth. And what we see in this world, and Christians need to understand, is that when we see the Jewish people attacked, Israel attacked, and then Christians attacked, it's
Yep.
all rolled up together. It's because it's a spiritual battle, and the enemy will always go after what God loves. God loves Israel. God loves the Jewish people. That doesn't mean he doesn't love and desire salvation for everybody. Believe me, I think that God aches when humanity is fighting with each other. But at some point, he told he told us you need to choose life. There's two directions you can take: life and death. Choose life. And that means making the world a better place, which is exactly what Israel has done for the last 76 years, and what the Jewish people have been doing for millennia, contributing to society. And as a thank you, usually the world at large just scapegoats them. And that's why I continue to urge Christians to please open their eyes and understand that this is a spiritual battle that we take part in the physical by defending and advocating and standing with Israel and the Jewish people. For any of you who want more information about where to go to see the screenings in DC, check the show notes and check our social medias, the Jersualem Connection. We'll also have the information on our website. If you feel led at all to help offset some of the travel costs for Igal to come to DC, we are accepting donations under the Revelations Project tab on our website. This is important. Those donations will go towards his airline ticket and hotel just for travel expenses. The film is available for free. If there's any overage, we're going to keep it in the documentary fund on our website for our next educational programming. Igal, is there any final words you have for us before?
Well, just to your point, and I just wanted to be in front of me, it's funny we talk about anti-Semitism and how it really does bring down societies. Winston Churchill said that civilization, the persecuted Jews, often perished in the flurry of their own fury, and this is something that we have to address because you really see it coming again from the left because the left is unhinged. Unfortunately, there's good people in the left, but there's way too much unhinged individual in the left since the early 2010s, and you see it now coming from the right as well. And I think the battle for Western democracy, if America falls and it becomes this socialist, awful, quote unquote utopia that will be not utopia but more mimic Venezuela, that is basically the destruction of the West and the rise of very extreme elements be it the Islamic world and be it or other societies. And so I think Christians and especially in America really need to grasp that and understand that Israel is truly, and people say it's cliche and whatnot, but Israel is truly in the front line fighting for Western democracy, providing aid wherever it can, be it militarily, be it technologically, through aid, through medicine and things along those lines.
Yeah.
It really is in the front line. And if Israel didn't have to fight these forces that try to destroy it every single day, and truly every single day I wake up, whether it's France, Macron, whose entire government is collapsing, still finds the time to attack Israel. The same with Spain, weak leaders. The same with Canada or Australia, weak leaders with poor economic and social fabric breaking down are using the Jews as a scapegoat. It'd be laughable if it wasn't, a reality, because that is exactly what happened 500 years ago. We're just going back in circles towards Jewish hatred. And I want Christians in America, especially evangelical Christians, but Christians of all denominations, and to understand that when you stand with Israel, you really are standing for Western and democratic values. And the images from Gaza are horrific, and they're sad, and they're tragic. But no one in Israel wanted to be there. And now you can't allow a massive military force of 20, 30,000 terrorists to take Gaza back and in 10 to 20 years do the exact same thing they did again. Because you're just inviting the next cycle of violence, the next war.
And then the leadership of Hamas has done no good thing for the Palestinian people living in Gaza. Gazans were
just
not
stole their money.
flourishing and having some wonderful life prior to October 7th.
Gaza had more money invested in it since 2005 than all of Europe did after World War II. And I want people to grasp that. Where did all that money go to? Did it go to aid? Did it go to benefit the people of Gaza? Did it go to build more schools, hospitals, etc.? No. It went to buy weapons. It went to
The terror network, the tunnel
the
network.
terror network and fill up the bank accounts of all these Hamas leaders.
Yeah.
And UN individuals and other individuals associated with various aid groups who take their cut. And all of this, by the way, if you don't believe me and you think this is Israeli propaganda, it's not. Go out, Google it, you'll find those reports yourself. They're long reports, 200, 300 pages. But at the end of the day, that's what you see. They just count on people not being aware of it.
That's right. That's right. Well, the one thing they will be aware of, with the help of your documentation and the Killing Roads documentary, is what actually happened and how it affected individuals on that.
I hope so.
On that morning, on that holiday of Simchat Torah, which was supposed to be one of the happiest days of the year for
Yes.
Israelis and Jews, and it was one of the worst, not just that year, but in a long time. Igal, we're so happy to host you in the DC area upcoming. Again, everybody check the show notes and our social medias for more details. And again, thekillingroads.com. You can reach out to Igal through his website if you want to host something at your church or a venue of your choosing and have him zoom in or fly in for a visit, or at the very least, just watch the movie. It's very important.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. 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 עוד אבינו חי, עוד אבינו חי. עוד אבינו, עוד אבינו, עוד אבינו חי. עוד אבינו חי, עוד אבינו חי. עוד אבינו, עוד אבינו, עוד אבינו חי. עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל